Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to another edition of the DFO DFS Report. I'm Brock Seguin. As you can see, no Zach Lang today. Zach is on the road traveling, so it'll be me riding solo today. If you used to watch the DFO DFS Report in years past, it was always me just blabbing on for about an hour. So kind of a bit of a throwback episode today. So we'll do our best to man the ship solo today. We have a nice looking 5-game slate tonight. Pretty interesting. Some ridiculous chalk tonight. That's going to be very interesting. Last night was a pretty good night. We really nailed some of the key spots that we needed to talk about. St. Louis 1 was unbelievable. Colorado 1 had a nice bounce back. We mentioned, maybe you could play Colorado 1 and Carolina 3 together, and Jordan Staal went off for a hat trick. So yeah, it was pretty it was a pretty good night for me. It was a pretty good night for some of the DFO DFS Discord users. And we also had a show viewer chart user take down the 20K tournament last night with a single lineup. So congratulations to Zigger77 on $20,000 last night. Awesome stuff. Thanks for the sheets and live streams. First big win in a while. So really cool stuff there for our users. But let's get into tonight's slate. Before we do, though, Tom, with a very great point here. Zach is MIA. Show starts exactly at scheduled time. Is this a coincidence? More often than not, it is actually probably my fault that we're late just because the charts are a little bit behind. But I did watch the countdown and was like 1 second left. I hit go live. So I like this is as on time as we've ever been this season, probably. So yeah, I'll take that one as a W for me. And we'll rub it in Zach's face a little bit there. Charlie Lindgren confirmed to get the start for the Washington Capitals. Jacob Dobbs getting the nod for the Montreal Canadiens. He's just been absolutely phenomenal in his first 2 starts. I wrote about him a little bit as a streaming option in season long because, yeah, the matchup tonight's not ideal, but he faced the Panthers and the Avalanche in his first 2 starts and was just incredible. So neither one of those matchups ideal either. Dustin Tokarski projected to go head-to-head with Thatcher Demko of the Vancouver Canucks. Speaking of the Canucks, Elias Pettersson, some reports out there that he's expected to be back tonight. Some reports suggesting that he's still a little bit questionable, officially listed as a game time decision for us. I did not include him in the charts because if he does play, I think there's going to be a lot of changes to the lineup. And I just didn't feel like projecting a lineup with Pettersson and having it be completely inaccurate just for him to not play. So I kept him out. I think it'll be a little bit easier to shift things around once we find out he's in. So just be prepared for that if you're planning on playing the Canucks tonight. The Red Wings will host the Chicago Blackhawks. It'll be Cam Talbot versus Peter Mrazek, who's coming off a sparkling performance against the Colorado Avalanche. The Jets, front end of a back-to-back for them, front end of a back-to-back for most of the teams that play tonight, 15 games tomorrow. Eric Comrie gets a start for the Jets. Darcy Kemper likely to get the nod for the LA Kings. Then you've got Karel Vejmelka versus Alexander Georgiev in the late game of the night. If you missed it, the Utah Hockey Club will be without Dylan Guenther, not only tonight, but long term. Doesn't sound like it's season ending, they are saying, but it's going to be a very long term absence for him. So Josh Doan, recalled from the AHL, he will make his season debut for Utah. I guess technically his Utah debut. He will slot in on the second line with Hayton and Michelli. Keller, Cooley, Schmaltz on the top line tonight. By far the chalkiest line I think that we've seen pretty much all season. We'll get to that here in a little bit. Petey was just activated off of IR. Perfect timing, right as I went live. Would have loved for him to get activated at 3 p.m. Eastern. So that's unfortunate. Petey almost certainly going to be in the lineup tonight. Going to be a little bit different. When we talk about that game, we'll have to try to navigate things a little bit, including Elias Pettersson. So, yeah, if he's activated from IR, he's going tonight. I've been waiting all afternoon for that news. And, of course, as soon as we go live, that happens. So that's awesome. Okay, let's get into the first game. We've got the Washington Capitals and the Montreal Canadiens. 3.7 implied total for the Washington Capitals, 2.6 for the Canadiens, minus 211 home favorites for the Capitals tonight. I was a little bit surprised by this line. The Montreal Canadiens, really one of the best teams in the NHL right now. They are red hot. They won 8 of their last 10. The offense is looking up. I think they've averaged 4 goals a game during that 10-game stretch. The goaltending's been a lot better. Dobbs has been unbelievable. So, yeah, I bet Montreal first thing this morning. Looked like a really nice line. I think that the Washington Capitals haven't been quite as good as they were early in the season. They're still solid, but, I think it was the last 10 games, 5v5 goal share for Montreal's top 5, and then Washington's bottom 6 in the league. So a little bit surprising to see this line be this stretched out. So Yeah, I was in on Montreal. I think I'm going to be over the field on Montreal in DFS. But let's get into that game. Let's start with the matchups. Not a whole lot, of bad matchups in this game. Both teams grade out pretty well from a matchup score perspective. You're going to see a lot of the Ovechkin line kind of going head to head with that third line of Montreal. Most of the hard matching tonight is going to be the Dubois line going head to head with the Nick Suzuki line, which is a pretty interesting matchup for that Suzuki line. Grades out with the best matchup on the Montreal side of things. So that matchup for Suzuki's line, really, really good metrics for them as of late. Probably, probably outperforming what they, expecting to do, shooting a little bit hot. But when you got a guy like Cole Caulfield on that line, that's going to happen. Would like to see them generate a few more scoring chances, but they've been really good. 4.7 expected goal or actual goals for per 60 is a really strong number. And then this matchup with the Dubois line, really, really good matchup here for Washington or Montreal won. So I like them quite a bit tonight. They grade out fourth best overall for me. But you take a look at this game as a whole, you've got three of the top four lines in this game. So definitely a game that I've got a lot of interest in targeting. I think if Dobes ends up having another big night, it's going to obviously suck for your Washington exposure, but Washington looks like they're in a good spot. Dobes isn't going to post a 980 save percentage forever. This game does look like it could be pretty high scoring this evening. So Montreal won coming in at 8.3% ownership is pretty modest. It's definitely a line that I've got a lot of interest in tonight. That's the seventh highest owned line on the slate. So definitely interested in Montreal won. Really nice matchup for them there. The power play hasn't been, that electric, and it's obviously not going to be quite as good without Patrick Laine. They're still 19th best over their last 10 games, but they do draw a bit of a tough matchup tonight against the Capitals PK that grades out 12th best. That's pretty much the only line that I can really strongly consider playing from the Montreal side of things. Like, Montreal 2 without Laine, the numbers have been pretty good, but they just have no finishing ability. Michael Pezzetta up there. The underlying metrics have been pretty strong for them, but I just don't really know if I can get to Doc and Newhook tonight without Laine in the lineup. Montreal 3 always it seems like a solid value option. Their underlying metrics are really strong, grading out pretty well. 3.0 expected goals for per 60, 32 scoring chances, 13 high danger. Really strong numbers for Montreal 3. So they're always kind of in play for me as a value option. They're going to see a lot of the Ovechkin line tonight and then kind of a mix of the second and fourth line. So that Ovechkin line, the actual scoring chances against, not great numbers. So fairly decent matchup here for Montreal 3. Washington 1's done a fairly good job keeping the puck out of the net. 1.7 actual goals against is really good, but yeah, as a value option, I think Montreal 3 is kind of always there. Charlie Lindgren hasn't necessarily been all that sharp this season either. So I like the Montreal side of things. Most of my interest comes in on coming in over the field, 8%. Montreal 1, but Montreal 3 always kind of in the mix for me. They grade out 19th best at just $8,000, seeing literally no ownership tonight at all. So yeah, I think that, pairing them up with some of these more expensive lines isn't the worst idea. Again, if you're playing a single entry, probably not a line for you. We talk about this a lot. Like I said yesterday, Carolina 3, looks like an okay play. If you're playing one lineup, probably not the line you want to target. It ended up being the case last night, but more often than not, like Philadelphia 3, Carolina 3, Montreal 3, they're fine plays, fine value options. If you're building 20 lineups, I wouldn't hinge your entire night on them, but at $8,000, I think that they're in an okay spot tonight. On the Washington side of things, obviously the top two lines grade out very well. The second line, the Dubois line, is going to go head to head with that Suzuki line, as I mentioned. That Suzuki line, very good offensive metrics, but they give up quite a bit at the defensive end of the ice as well. So pretty good matchup for Washington too. That's just been absolutely unbelievable. If you missed it last game, which I don't know how you could, because it just turned the entire slate into just a hectic mess right before lock. But they went back to their kind of initial start of the season lines that were absolutely cooking. When McMichael was running incredibly hot. And now it's kind of the opposite. McMichael's been kind of cooling off or cooled off completely, and Dubois and Tom Wilson are absolutely cooking. So that line has been really successful together so far this season. The offensive metrics across the board are among the best on the entire slate tonight. So really no reason not to have interest in Washington 2 unless Dobe stands on his head tonight. But at 14% ownership, both Washington 1 and Washington 2 seen a healthy amount of ownership, but Washington 2 grades out slightly better. The lowest owned player in this top six, but both these lines basically have a low-owned player. McMichael at 7% and Protas at 7%. So to full stack this line, probably coming in around 8% for the trio. And I feel pretty good about both these lines. Like they're in really nice spots tonight at 5v5. That being said, I said at the top, Montreal has been much better defensively as of late. Dobes has played well. So I wouldn't be surprised if at the end of the night, Washington is kind of a letdown spot. And Montreal sneaks out a win here. It wouldn't shock me at all. But that being said, the matchups still look okay on paper. It's still a team that I'm going to have exposure to tonight, and I think you should as well. Not all that difficult. Basically, leverage tonight is just fading Utah 1 and getting over the field on basically any other line, and you're fine. You've got leverage on the field most likely because Utah 1 coming in at 35% is just insane. So I think it's pretty easy to get to like 15, 20%. Washington tonight, pretty good matchups for them. Top line as well, really, really good numbers with Strome, Protas, and Ovechkin. Protas continues to just be an unbelievable story at 5v5 this year. On the power play, they've got the fourth best matchup tonight. Their power play has been, clicking very, very well as of late. Fifth best over their last 10 games. Do draw a bit of a difficult matchup against a Canadiens PK that's been solid, but whenever you got Alex Ovechkin out there, especially chasing Wayne Gretzky for the goal record, he's going to be shooting the puck a ton. You expect that power play, will stay hot tonight, I would imagine. Also, Grays was the highest event game of the night. So, yeah, there's a lot to like about this game from an offensive perspective. You just need a little bit of Dobes to cool off, and it could be a 4-3 hockey game tonight. And I think that, Washington 1, Washington 2 in great spots. Montreal 1, Montreal 3, my interest there. If you had to game stack it, would it be Washington 1 and Habs 1? Probably. Yeah, I wouldn't mind doing a Washington 2, Montreal 1 stack either, just because, like I said, these two lines have really, really good offensive metrics and really, really bad defensive metrics. So that matchup between Montreal 1 and Washington 2 could turn into a bit of a track meet tonight, with both of those lines being pretty successful. Obviously, it gives you a little bit of salary relief as well going to Washington 2. So I don't always like to pair up lines that are going to see a lot of each other, but when it looks like it's going to be a really high event matchup, I don't mind necessarily getting there. So game stacking here definitely seems to be viable. I mean, when you take a look at the rest of the matchups tonight, doesn't look like a lot of great game stacking environments, right? Outside of this one, Carolina, Vancouver doesn't feel like a great game stack environment. Detroit, Chicago, perhaps. Detroit's been obviously better under Todd McLellan. The Chicago offense is a little bit difficult to trust. Bedard's been hot. Bertuzzi's been hot. So that maybe has a little bit of game stack upside. I feel a little bit better still about the Washington Montreal side of things in that one. The Jets and Kings both very, very good defensively. So that doesn't look like the best game stacking environment. And then Utah San Jose does have that feel like, it could get a little game stacky, but San Jose as well is just kind of a little bit of a difficult offense to trust right now. Again, they've been sputtering offensively as of late. So, if you're taking a look at the slate as a whole, I think that this top game, the Washington Montreal one, feels like the best game stack environment of the bunch. That's going to do it for that game. Let's get to Carolina and Vancouver now. So 3.4 implied total, minus 174 home favorites for the Hurricanes tonight, despite being in the second half of a back-to-back. The matchups in this one, pretty bleak on both sides for the most part. We talked about it yesterday, liking the top line for the Toronto Maple Leafs because they were going to be going head-to-head with the Sebastian Aho line. And as I mentioned, the Sebastian Aho line still, very good offensive numbers, but the defensive numbers still lacking quite a bit. So you would imagine that whoever faces them, whether that ends up being the Miller line or the Pettersson line, if I'm imagining they're split up tonight, is going to be a good matchup. I would imagine that they'll match up with the Miller Besser duo, but again, without really knowing what the lineups are going to look like tonight for the Canucks, it's a little bit more of a difficult game to break down. We don't know if Lekkerimäki is going to remain in the lineup or if he's going to be the one that comes out to make room for Pettersson. I would imagine that Di Giuseppe's probably at risk of coming out, maybe Max Sasson. But I think that Pettersson probably slots in here with DeBrusk and Garland. Suter moves down, whether it be to the third or fourth line tonight. There's always the chance that that Suter shifts over to the wing. A lot of uncertainty here. This Vancouver side is just really not one that I have all that much interest in on a night-to-night basis. In a difficult matchup against the Hurricanes tonight, I think it's probably much of the same. They're projected the top line just 3.6% ownership. Obviously, the second line is going to be different if Pettersson plays. They're projected that Garland, DeBrusk at 6%. I would imagine Pettersson will come around in around a similar mark. So Tokarski's been fine. for the most part for the Hurricanes. So, I think that the Canucks are in an okay leverage spot in this slate, a decent low owned spot, decent contrarian play. I have a hard time trusting them more often than not. And then without really knowing what these lineups are gonna look like it's hard to really break down and feel super confident one way or the other. But again, the lineup or the game, locks at the first lock of the night, so you'll be able to pivot fine with the Canucks in your lineup. Whether Pettersson is on the top line, second line, wherever he slots in, we'll have to find out in warmups. Just another reason to join the DFO DFS Discord. We'll obviously drop the lines in there right at warmups, and we can kind of talk about it, and I'll run some numbers and try to figure out, if you do want to play the Canucks, who the best lines are to target. I'll rerun those numbers once we figure out what the lines are. Like button, everybody. Love that play from John. Your favorite way to stack Montreal 1, full stack or power play? Yeah, I don't mind getting the power play in the mix. It's not the best power play matchup, though. So, Blaine Hudson's been playing so well that, I would probably include him. His price is fairly reasonable yet again. So, yeah, I'd probably just full stack Washington 1 and Montreal 1 and try to correlate Lane Hudson there as well. That's probably what I would do. But if you can't fit Lane Hudson, I think there's some other reasonable options that don't necessarily have to include the power play. Alex Carrier is a nice value option at about $2,800, I think. At least that's what he's been around as of late. Let's see what he's actually at, so I'm not lying to you. 2,800. Look at me go. 1.5% ownerships. Yeah, I like full stacking Montreal 1. I wouldn't leave anybody off. The floorless Canucks, yeah, that's kind of the issue, right? They don't shoot a ton, in a matchup against the Hurricanes. They're probably not going to, rack up the shot side either. So they can definitely, end up being optimal tonight, but it just doesn't feel like a team that I want to have an overwhelmingly large amount of exposure to. On the Hurricane side of things, it does look pretty good. Carolina 3 grades out really, really well tonight. I don't think I'm really going to run it back with them. Maybe a little bit. Last night, yeah, Jordan Staal had a hat trick last night, but he's been racking up the points at a reasonable clip as of late. Svechnikov under 6K also feels good. I said it on the show yesterday. Whenever they've got Svechnikov on their line, they feel a little bit more live offensively, and the numbers bear that out, right? They're actually scoring at 4.3 goals for per 60. So instead of, generating 3.3 expected and scoring at 1.3 like they would do with maybe an Alex Carrier or a William Carrier on that line. So when Svechnikov's on that line, they have good usage, 26% of the 5v5 ice time. They're a little bit more live, and they looked at last night. So I don't mind getting to them about 5%. Carolina 1 still, they don't grade out the best. They actually have the worst 5v5 metrics of the team, but they still feel like the line that's got the highest upside. Roslovic has just been a 5v5 darling this season. Aho under 7K. Seth Jarvis, 6,100 is a nice price tag. They're coming in with pretty high ownership, 13.4% as a whole. That's the fifth highest owned line on the slate. So I don't mind getting to them a little bit. And I don't mind mixing in Carolina 2 either. With Netjazz, Kotkaniemi, and Robinson, they're very, very cheap at $12,300. They're seeing the least ownership on the Hurricane side of things, and their underlying metrics have been unbelievable. A lot of this obviously fueled by the early season. Netjazz has cooled off considerably, but at basically no ownership. And that cheap of a price tag, I don't mind mixing them in either. Their matchup is actually the best overall on the Carolina side of things. So I think they're a little bit live tonight. Again, the matchup is pretty good up against Carolina or Vancouver 3 here, which grades out the worst defensively on the Vancouver Canucks side of things. Obviously, going to be some shuffling going on here though if Pettersson plays, but that matchup looks pretty live tonight for Carolina too. I think they're in a kind of an interesting low owned spot, but this game as a whole doesn't draw a ton of my interest. Both power plays grade out in the bottom half. The Hurricanes power play continues to struggle. Fairly difficult matchup tonight against 10th ranked PK. Then the Canucks kind of in a similar boat. They grade out 6th best, but really not a unit that I'm focused on too much tonight. So this game is going to draw a small amount of my interest, but not an overwhelming amount. It should say Zach Lang's Wi-Fi is absent today. Zach Lang's Wi-Fi is absent every day. We somehow just get the show done with him no matter what. Petey will be low owned. Yeah, I would agree that Pettersson probably not going to draw too much ownership. I don't think the Canucks as a whole are going to draw a lot of ownership. Worth mentioning, though, that I don't mind getting back to Brent Burns tonight. He was 4K yesterday. I mixed him in to some of my lineups. Still on that top power play unit tonight. I just want to see what he's done recently. So Brent Burns, he's up to $4,200 tonight. He had another 7.8 DraftKings points last night. He has 7.8, 14.9, 8.4 in his last 3 games. Then 4.1, 23.3 in his last 5. So I've been playing pretty well. Top power play unit. Sees a bunch of minutes. I don't mind getting to Brent Burns, as a one-off in that Hurricanes lineup, or if you want to stack up that power play. I don't love the power play stack, but he correlates obviously pretty nicely. Moving on to Detroit and Chicago, and I have the same sentiment as Tom here. Detroit, Chicago screams low pace 2-1 type game, so we'll end up being 6-5, which that just seems like the case with any Red Wings game, right? Like it feels like they can be good enough defensively that they can keep it low scoring, but then then obviously the Blackhawks offense isn't great, but then the Red Wings obviously have enough offense to where they can kind of open things up as well. The offense has been pretty solid under Todd McLellan. The power play specifically has been just unbelievable. They grade out 4th best overall over the last 10 games, but the number 1 power play tonight, 4th best power play going up against the 20th ranked PK. So that brings the entire top 6 of the Detroit Red Wings into the mix tonight. Detroit 2 actually grades out better than Detroit 1. Detroit 1 16th it grades out a little bit worse, but they're drawing more ownership tonight. I like the Detroit side of things a lot tonight. I love that power play stack. I love playing DeBrincat and Kane mini stacks. I like playing full Detroit 1. I think moving Marco Kasper up to the top line is going to provide the Red Wings with a little bit more juice than maybe what they've gotten out of Joe Veleno on that top line recently. And he obviously keeps the salary down to $14,500. So Detroit is a very cheap option in a really, really good spot tonight. The matchups obviously outstanding across the board for the Red Wings. The Blackhawks suck defensively, but not a whole lot of strong offensive numbers here for Detroit 1, but Detroit 2 has been awesome. I give Andrew Kopp a lot of flack, but it's been working as of late. I still probably wouldn't include him in a ton of my Detroit 2 stacks. Like he might be included in some of them, but most of my interest comes obviously on Patrick Kane and Alex DeBrincat, obviously both facing their former team tonight as well. Kopp's been okay, but hasn't hit double digits since December 20th in terms of DraftKings points. So at $2,700, not the worst play ever. Plays about 16 minutes a night. But most of my interest will come in that DeBrincat Kane mini stack. I'll also have no issues pairing them up with Larkin and Raymond on that top power play unit. I think that power play unit probably stays hot tonight. We haven't seen Kasper, Raymond, and Larkin together really at all. So this sample is kind of just a hodgepodge of Larkin and Raymond and Larkin and Kasper put together. So I do believe that there's a chance that these metrics improve. Obviously, this is the first time we've seen this trio together under Todd McLellan. That team's been much better as a whole under McLellan. So I think that the Red Wings can probably end up carrying better offensive numbers than what these metrics suggest tonight, which would obviously bump them much higher than 16th. So they are both seeing a fairly reasonable amount of ownership. It gets high at 16%. It's 25% for Larkin, but Raymond at just 15%, and then Detroit 2 at 13%, mostly coming in 20% on DeBrincat and 15% on Kane. I don't mind getting to 20% Detroit tonight, maybe even 25%. I think they're in a really nice leverage spot to just kind of get over the field and then end up coming in under the field on Utah 1 as a result. I think is a fine play tonight. Utah 1 obviously in a good spot. We'll get to that game in a second. But Detroit feels really, really good tonight and a team that I'm definitely going to get to. And hopefully, as a Red Wings fan, they can stay hot tonight. We've got Dustin Tokarski confirmed to get the start for the Carolina Hurricanes. Thank you, Beebs. Quinn is definitely not 100%, which greatly hurts our offense since he's almost the entire team. Yes. I say it all the time that he is everything to the Vancouver Canucks. And if he's not 100%, that offense is going to struggle, both at 5v5 and on the power play. Cameron's looking for the Discord link. It is in the description of the video on YouTube. So if you're on YouTube, which you obviously are, so you're commenting, link is in the description of the video. So click it and join us there. On the Chicago side of things, I mean, I was wrong on them the other night against the Avalanche. I don't feel bad about it. The matchup's not great for the top line tonight. They're going to see a lot of that Larkin line. They're also going to see a mix of the third line as well. I just have a hard time trusting the Blackhawks as a whole. These metrics are horrendous. Bertuzzi's running ridiculously high. It's not sustainable. The regression is gonna set in eventually. Bedard's obviously on a nice run. I'll mix Chicago in, but I've basically no ownership. I think they're an okay play to get over the field on. Um, Cam Talbot's been fine, not great since the early part of the season. Bedard one-off is probably the thing that interests me the most. I think they've got some nice defensive options as well to save you some salary. But stacking up the Blackhawks tonight is not something I'm going to end up doing a ton of. And I feel happy seeing that they're seeing low ownership because I would have hated to get burned by them again. Like Bertuzzi's scored a couple of like 15, 20% goals lately when I've had no exposure to him at all. So I'm happy to see them low owned. I hope that remains the case because I probably won't be getting to them too much tonight, but I don't mind it as a leverage spot. But I just don't trust them. I don't trust this offense. I don't trust the scoring is going to continue at the rate that it has. The only guy that I really feel strongly about is Connor Bedard. How does Winnipeg one show number one on the day with a score, but the matchup rank is so poor? So the rank includes the 5v5 score. So their 5v5 score is second best still. It also includes power play score. Their power play score is second best. And it also includes the overall line projection, which is also second best. So when you combine the three, they grade out number one. So the thing is that, yes, the matchup score is terrible, but their 5v5 metrics are very strong, and they also play a ton. So you're obviously going to generate, even in a tough matchup, you're still going to be able to generate more looks, more scoring chances if you're playing more. So it is also weighted by time on ice. And at 32%, that is the highest, the most time on ice that any 5v5 line is going to see tonight. So that is factored in. They also have a great power play. So all of those factors in, yes, the matchup is bad, no doubt. But with everything included, Winnipeg one still ends up grading out pretty well. Before we get to that game, just another quick look at the power play. The Blackhawks 27th on the power play over their last 10 games, ninth best power play advantage tonight. So just another reason why I'm kind of off the Blackhawks tonight. A lot of talking here, 27 straight minutes. I'm going to take a sip of beer here, and we'll get to the second half of the show. Cheers. Okay. Let's get into that next game, Winnipeg and LA. Both have a 2.9 implied total. Both these teams very good defensively. As Isaac pointed out, the matchup's pretty bad. The pace score pretty bad. The Jets are going to see a mix of the bottom nine here of the Kings. Now, I'm a little bit bummed because the charts include Trevor Moore on the second line. They practiced a couple of days ago before the Flames game that ended up getting postponed. Trevor Moore was on the second line with Byfield and Foegele. And then this morning, I guess that changed. I didn't get word until right before the show went live that it looks like it's going to be Foegele, Byfield, Jeannot. So the charts include Trevor Moore. I don't know what it's going to end up being, but I don't think that Trevor Moore Jeannot swap will change the charts too drastically anyway, so it's probably not a huge issue. But just know that if you do plan on playing LA2 tonight, you might want to include Jeannot instead of Moore. I'll end up editing the charts a little bit if I can after the show to reflect this, but for now, we got Trevor Moore on the second line in the charts, but he's actually projected to be on the fourth line. Matchups for this game, pretty bleak on both sides. The reason that's kind of a big deal is that we've got LA2 projected for the best matchup in this game. Their underlying metrics have been very good. You've got, what's his name? Quentin Byfield playing extremely well. Warren Foegele playing extremely well. So that line looks like they're in a pretty good spot tonight to have a decent night. I still never know exactly how to target the Kings because their offense is so spread out. And you see it here, like LA3 grades out 6th, LA2 grades out 14th, LA1 grades out 12th. They all look okay. But there's no way that all three lines end up being great tonight, and finding the right one is difficult. None of them are really drawing a whole lot of ownership on this game, and that's probably fair. I do think this is probably a lower scoring game. I don't love the Kings side of things. With Comrie getting the start, I have a little bit more interest. He's basically given up 3 goals a game this season, as opposed to Connor Hellebuck's basically lights out. I still think that at the end of the day, the Kopitar, Turcotte, Kempe line has the highest upside. The problem is they're going to see a ton of the Adam Lowry line. So I'll probably just end up crossing LA1 off and focusing on LA2 and LA3. The matchup with the Lowry line is horrendous. They've given up 0.6 goals against per 60 this year. It's unreal how good they are defensively. So I think that basically takes LA1 out of the mix for me. I'll focus in on LA1 and LA2 and LA3. Their matchups are a little bit better. Their offensive metrics are pretty good. LA3's offensive metrics are outstanding. So I don't mind getting to them at 14,200, Fiala at 6,600, Deneau 3,300, and Laferriere at 4,300. Very low ownership, pretty good underlying metrics. I'm kind of in on LA3 tonight. And then LA2, as I mentioned, mostly interested in a Fogle Byfield mini stack. If Trevor Moore ends up being there, I'll include him probably. So if you do want a full stack, Trevor Moore is $3,700 and Jeannot is 25. So makes things a little bit trickier if it doesn't end up being Jeannot instead of Moore. That's why I'll probably just relax on the Moore or Jeannot play. Just stick to mini stacks of Fogle and Byfield, and they're very, very cheap. $3,800 and $3,900, very affordable. When you take a look at the value forwards tonight, that's value defenseman. Value to forwards tonight from the LA Kings side of things. Where are they? Looks pretty good, right? You got Fogle at the top of the board. You've got Byfield projected for 6.5%. Neither one expect to see much ownership at all. Don't mind getting to them at all. Sandberg back is actually a legit thing too, even though he's not a household name. Yeah, tremendous defenseman, defensive defenseman for the Winnipeg Jets. Definitely bolsters their blue line tonight. If Hellebuck was getting the start tonight, I would have basically no interest in the Kings. But with Comrie in net, I do think that there is reason. Speaking of Comrie, way off topic. If you don't follow the Jets on any social medias, search out some Eric Comrie bits. He is just one of the most wholesome fellas in probably the entire league. Every piece of content that the Jets do with Eric Comrie is just pure gold. He's a great dude. So I don't want to disparage him too much on the show. He's not as good as Connor Hellebuck. I think he would agree. So on the Jet side, I do have more interest. I think that this top line is just too good. Their underlying metrics are great. They play a shitload. They grade out number 1 at just 7.9% ownership. I'm comfortable getting to them at least 10% tonight and getting a little bit of leverage on the field. The power play grades out number 3 tonight. Their power play has been really good. Second best. They do draw a tough assignment tonight against the Kings. PK, that's been very good, but I don't mind running it with Winnipeg 1 tonight. They've basically been there every night they've played this year. They've had big games almost nightly. So I have no issue getting to them at their ownership. $22,000. I think there's more than enough cheap lines tonight to pair them with. Again, I'm not going to get too carried away. This is not a great game environment, but I'm definitely going to be over the field at 7 points. 9%. Comrie looks 16. Yeah, he does look like a young kid still. I wish I did. I mean, the good genes. I still wear my number 17 Kovalchuk Atlanta Thrashers hat. Random, but okay. I love that. As a Kings fan, I would target Kempe, Kopitar, Laferriere. Yeah, it's just so hard going up against the Lowry line. I basically just auto scratch off whoever faces that Lowry line. Kempe gets a ton of ice time. That is true. He plays a shitload. Kempe's one of, if not the most underrated player in the entire NHL, in my opinion. He's sensational. It's just a bad matchup tonight. Favorite stack if you're only making one line tonight. Honestly, among my favorites is Montreal 1. If I'm making one lineup tonight, I'm probably just fading Utah 1. If I'm in a single entry, like they might be 50% owned. We were talking in the Discord earlier. They might be 50% owned in single entry. It's the same thing that we had with Colorado 1 the other night. Granted, Alexander Georgiev is not great. Peter Mrazek was horrendous coming into that game. He played well. So 50%, maybe, even if it's 35%, like we're suggesting here, in single entry, I'll probably just fade Utah. If they go off, whatever. So yeah, like Montreal 1 looks good. Detroit looks good. Washington looks good. those would be the teams that I would focus on if I'm building one lineup tonight and just say, screw it. Hopefully Utah doesn't burn me. Kings power play always comes alive against the Jets. Is that true? Perhaps. Power play matchup for them tonight overall still looks okay, right? The Jets PK has not been all that great. Problem is the Kings don't draw a lot of penalties. The Jets don't take a ton of penalties. So that's a bit of a tough point there. Okay, let's move to the final game of the night because this is the one that everybody's probably here for. Utah, 3.8 implied total, minus 273 home favorites, 238 road underdogs for the Sharks. The Sharks just can't score again. They kind of like found the rhythm for a little bit. What was that? Like end of December, early January, perhaps. I guess it would be mid December would have been more likely. They've scored 1, 3, 6, 8 goals in their last 5 games. Pretty bleak. Late December, mid to late December, their offense was kind of cooking. Celebrini's kind of cooled off. But man, Utah as minus 273 home favorites seems insane, especially with Dylan Guenther out. Now, the top line is projected for 35% ownership, which is insane. They do, however, have the number one matchup score on the night. That being said, these offensive metrics are horrendous. I don't know why Clayton Keller, Nick Schmaltz, Barrett Hayton work so well, and Logan Cooley, Dylan Guenther works so well, but Keller, Schmaltz, Cooley hasn't worked at all. I mean, they still have scored 3.3 goals for per 60, which is great. But these underlying metrics, I mean, it's like some of the worst offensive metrics on the slate, and they're 35% owned. That is concerning. Now, if you only generate a few good looks against Georgiev, you can still score a couple goals. That's the problem. But I feel very comfortable in saying I do not mind being under the field on Utah 1 tonight. I think that they are in a bit of a floppy spot given these underlying metrics. Now, I love these 3 players overall. I love Clayton Keller, Logan Cooley, Nick Schmaltz. Their game is tremendous. They are only 17,100. I will undoubtedly still have lineups with Utah 1, despite those poor underlying metrics. But getting up to 35%, this feels like an easy fade to me at that ownership. So I'll be mixing them in without question, but that just seems outrageous. The second line is also very interesting. Their underlying metrics are not great, but better than Utah 1. Their matchup is just a little bit worse. And they're significantly cheaper. Michelli has been a bit snake bitten this year at 5% ownership, $3,300. Hayton, definitely not the same quality with Hayton when he's not with Schmaltz and Keller. But then Josh Stone, he's going to be on the top power play unit at just $2,500 tonight. He feels like a great one-off, but full stacking this line is kind of an interesting pivot option tonight. I don't mind getting to them in this matchup because if we like Utah 1, there's really no reason not to like Utah 2 as well, especially at that price point. So here are the new Utah power plays. Schmaltz, Cooley, Doan, Sergachev, Keller, and Schmaltz, Cooley, Doan, Keller, Sergachev. Yeah, I might have named them all. So I think one way to try to get a little bit different with Utah tonight would just be including Doan in a power play stack. Now, that's not going to get you crazy different, but he's, that trio is coming in at 35% ownership, where Doan's coming in at 11%. So it gets you at least marginally different than just full stacking Utah 1. And then you've got Sergachev projected for probably 25%. So it'll get you a little different. Won't get you crazy different. They do have the number 2 power play advantage on the slate. They got the number 8 power play going up against a 32nd ranked PK. So I love a Utah power play stack tonight, but I'm still not getting to 35% Utah 1. The rest of this lineup, it's hard to really trust. The third line with Liam O'Brien, maybe a little bit Bukestad, Krause mini stack. Again, matchup's really good. Offensive metrics, though, still pretty bad. So it's hard to buy in. Now, maybe I'm just trying to talk myself into the fact that the Sharks are going to win this game because I bet them this morning, but I was hoping Askarov would start. With Georgiev getting the nod, feels nowhere near as good. But How do you handle players like Slafkovsky where he's on a solid line, but he's not doing much? Depends. With a guy like Slafkovsky, it doesn't matter as much to me because he's priced as a guy that's not doing much. He's $3,800. If you got a guy that's kind of running cold, but he's still 5K, then I would consider leaving him off. $3,800, I have no issues, including Slafkovsky, just 3% ownership. That power play loses its main shooter, could just look lost out there. I agree with that wholeheartedly. Gunther is the trigger man on that power play unit. And do I think that they're going to be, what were they? The number 8 ranked power play moving forward without Gunther? No. But tonight, with the matchup that they have, I still think they can pot a goal, maybe 2. But yeah, no, this team is, I don't think the average fan realizes how good Dylan Gunther is and how big of a loss this is. If Askarov got the start tonight, I would be full fading this team entirely. With Georgiev, it's hard. It's harder. On the Shark side of things, the matchups aren't very good, and the underlying metrics aren't very good. The lines, the configuration is very gross. You've got Eklund, Granlund, Zetterlund together. They've been solid in the past. Wenberg to Foley Graf, sure. Celebrini, Will Smith, sure. I don't mind this team tonight, but it's just so hard to look at them and be like, yep, this is the line to target. For me, it's probably San Jose 1, $13,700, 6% ownership. They've been solid in the past. They've cooled off a little bit, but there's enough offense on that line to get the job done tonight in what is the best matchup overall on the Sharks side of things tonight. So that would be the line I would target from the San Jose Sharks. Celebrini is obviously a dog. I don't mind maybe a Celebrini one-off at $7,100, 10% ownership. He's fine as well. I would include some Celebrini, but mostly San Jose 1 tonight for me. Yeah, some people agree with me. Celebrini one off, shocker. Yeah, he's an absolute dog. What has he done recently? Like, I know he was red hot, and then I feel like he's cooled off quite a bit, but yeah, 2 goals in his last 8 games. Is that what that is? 2 goals in his last 9 games. Still 27 shots on goal, though. The shot volume remains very steady. Still playing around 20 minutes a night, which is great. So, yeah, Celebrini one-off's fine. Maybe include some Will Smith. I don't care about Luke Cunnin. Smith, Celebrini minis, sure. But I won't have a ton of exposure to them. Their power play, not great either. So, the Sharks not in a great spot tonight, but hopefully they can keep it low scoring and win this one. Georgiev, to his credit, didn't look terrible the other night against the Golden Knights. So hopefully he can kind of keep things going. Vamilka has been solid lately. Hard to justify the Sharks. I would agree. Vamilka has definitely been great. He's cooled off a little bit. Like, he's still been pretty good, but I feel like he's cooled off. Like, he was great against the Panthers again the other night. But in his last, basically since Christmas, last 6 games, he's 1-4-1 with a 907 save percentage. So he's been solid still, just not outstanding. But yeah, I would agree. It's hard to get to the Sharks tonight. I think there's just much better spots. Because basically, like, you'd be looking at them as like maybe a decent leverage option. The whole field is leverage except for Utah 1, basically. So yeah, like the teams that I'm most interested in getting over the field tonight: Winnipeg 1, the Washington top 6, Montreal 1, and Detroit. And coming in under the field on Utah. I think that's the way I'm going to go. And I think that, I'll be it's pretty easy to get over the field on all those teams I mentioned and come in under the field on Utah. I should be very different than the field tonight, and hopefully that works out. Okay, let's talk about some defensemen tonight. Sort by value here. So, like Sergachev, Seider both feel really good. Matheson's been solid as of late as well. I talked about Brent Burns. I like Simon Edmondson. Ben Sherratt grades out pretty well. I don't know how many shot blocks he's going to face tonight, or he's going to get to block tonight, just because the Blackhawks don't necessarily shoot at puck a ton, but he grades out okay. Caden Gooley's been playing very well. Alex Carey, I mentioned him already. I don't mind some of these cheap Chicago defenders. Wyatt Kaiser specifically looks okay. I also like Lane Hudson at $4,300 a lot. Louis Crevier as well looks okay on that blue line for the Blackhawks. Like, those are the players I'm playing from Chicago tonight. And then you've got kind of Where did they go? There's somebody I wanted to talk about, and I lost them entirely. Let's start by power play. Power play 1. Who's our cheap power play 1 quarterback tonight? Timothy Liljegren's still there. Brent Burns, Lane Hudson. Those would be the 3 that I would focus on. Oh, Jacob Chikrin was the other guy I wanted to talk about. Love Jacob Chikrin. He's been unbelievable. I think he's one of only 3 defensemen in the NHL with double-digit goals this year. $5,900. I would play him instead of Carlson to save that extra $100. Don't mind Carlson either at $6K though. Sharks not in a great spot, but there's only one team that's in a really great spot. Yeah, would agree. Lane Hudson's going to score tonight. Doesn't score a ton, but he's definitely good, man. He is super good. $4,300. His price tag just doesn't change much, and it doesn't make a lot of sense. And if that team's going to keep humming tonight, I mean, Lane Hudson's going to be at the forefront of it. Okay, let's get to the goalies tonight. Karel Vejmelka grades out as the number 1 goalie to target overall, $8,400. I don't know how much Vejmelka I'm going to get up to. Maybe a little bit, not a ton. I would rather play Vejmelka than Lindgren, though. I don't like Lindgren that much at $8,200. I prefer Cam Talbot at $8,100. Probably, even maybe prefer Tokarski at $8K, but I think that's tough. Just not going to see enough shot volume, and he's not that great. So, higher price goalies tonight that I'm focused on, Vejmelka and Talbot. And then lower price goalies that I'm focused on tonight. I don't mind Demko if he starts. You're going to see a lot of volume. I just don't see how that team wins that game. They're just not playing all that well. Maybe Kemper. He's been unbelievable this year. Should face a decent amount of volume at $7,600. I don't mind Kemper. He's kind of in that mid-range in terms of price and ownership. And then Dobes, man. I love Dobes tonight. I think he's in not a great spot, obviously, but he's been unbelievable. Why would I doubt him now at $7,200? The Capitals are trending in the wrong direction as of late. So Dobes at $7,200, I'm definitely taking some swings there, seeing no ownership. And honestly, I will probably play some Georgiev. I don't know why. I just he's in such a good leverage spot. This feels like the Mrazek spot from the other night, and hopefully he can surprise us. The leverage is massive. It's not going to be a lot of Georgiev. It'll be a little bit, though. It'll be a little bit. And just hope for the best. Just pray. Mo should not be playing next to Sherrod. Absolutely not. Definitely not. Edvinsson and Sherrod, or Edvinsson and Sider is unbelievable. The problem is they just don't have any other options because the rest of the blue line is so bad that it's the only way to have 2 reasonably good pairs. But yeah, Sider and Edvinsson need to be back together without question. Is Detroit stack a thing you would do? I hardly ever play that team. So what do you think? Yes, especially from a power play perspective. I would play both the top lines. I'd play the power play. I love Detroit tonight. They're in a good spot. No show league tonight on DraftKings. That's Zach's thing. Zach puts together the DFO DFS Discord contest. I do not. So I'll see if he plans on it. I'm not 100% sure. Georgiev for the win. Yeah. All right. We got one other person on board with Georgiev tonight. Don't mind it. I feel like I'm missing a comment. Nope, we're good. Okay. I guess I don't really have a head-to-head against Zach. I'm just going to take the win tonight because he's not here. So good for me. So we'll do the hat trick pick challenge, I guess. If you want to participate in today's hat trick pick challenge, you can do so by dropping your hat trick pick in the comment section of the video on YouTube. If your player scores a hat trick, we'll get you a $25 gift card to nationgear.ca. As I mentioned yesterday, we're going to start doing subscriber giveaways every Friday. We're going to give away a $50 gift card, no hat trick pick challenge. We're going to do that right now. So how this is going to work is we're going to give you a $50 gift card to Nation Gear. So I drew the name before the show, and if this person is watching and contacts me, we'll get him a $50 gift card to Nation Gear. If he does not contact me by Monday, or her, if they do not contact me by Monday, we will run another one on Monday. So our very first subscriber giveaway, $50 gift card to nationgear.ca, is Aaron Rasmus. So if you are Aaron Rasmus 3160 on YouTube, congratulations on winning $50 to nationgear.ca. You can pick up some DFO swag. If you're a fan of any of our nation teams, the Canadian teams for the most part, Canucks Army, Flames Nation, Oilers Nation, Leafs Nation, you can pick up some of their swag as well. So congratulations, Aaron. If you are watching, reach out and we will get you hooked up with that gift card. If not, we will run another contest on Monday, or another giveaway on Monday. Back to the hat trick pick challenge. Somebody else can win $25 tonight. How do we contact you? That's a great question. So you can reach out to me directly on Twitter at Brock_Seguin. You can also reach me at DFO Fantasy on Twitter. Just tweet at me. Or if you're in the Discord, obviously that would be an easy way to get to me as well. So reach out to me one of those 3 ways, and we will get you hooked up with the $50 gift card. So congratulations to Aaron. But I think we're giving away a $25 gift card tonight too, because we're getting a hat trick tonight. My hat trick pick is going to be, give me Alex DeBrincat for me. So yeah, drop your hat trick pick in the comment section of the video on YouTube. And while you're there, smash the like button, hit the subscribe button as well, so we never miss an episode. And if you hit the subscribe button, you'll be entered to win a $50 gift card next week. So if you also want to join the DFO DFS Discord, which some people have asked about already, you can do so by clicking the link in the description of the video on YouTube. And shout out to our friends at rotogrinders.com for providing us with projected ownership for tonight. They've really upgraded the show. It's been a big addition, and we really greatly appreciate RotoGrinders for providing the projected ownership. And if you want to get $20 off your first month of RotoGrinders NHL Premium, you can do so by clicking the link in the description of the video on YouTube. You can take everything you learned on today's show, run it through the optimizer at rotogrinders.com, and build that optimal lineup tonight. That looks like it's gonna do it for the DFO DFS report for today. Hope you guys didn't mind listening to me and just me for 51 straight minutes. I've been sick for the last couple of days. I'm surprised I made it through without losing my voice. So everything's coming up DFO DFS right now. Great stuff. Massive win again last night. $20,000 winner from the show. Congratulations. Hopefully we can crown another one tonight. And best of luck tonight. Hopefully you return with more money in your bankroll tomorrow than you had tonight. We'll see you guys back here with another edition of the show on Monday. Enjoy your weekend. Until then, cheers.